that, Sophie?" I asked as I stared down at the shiny rock-like object in her hands. "It's my shell that I found in the rock pool," she replied as she handed it to me. A light pinky rock that shined and sparkled every time you slightly moved it. Dad had brought Sophie and I to the beach for a day. We played in the water, made sandcastles, and searched the rock pools. Dad had been setting up the lunch. "Girls, it's time to eat," called Dad. Sophie and I started to run to the beach mat. As I sat down, the wind started to pick up. Grabbing my jersey and flinging it over my shoulders as I hugged my knees to my chest, Sophie was at the water washing off her hands. "I think we should eat in the car," yelled Dad as he started to pack away the food. It was really cold and the sun was disappearing behind clouds. Suddenly, rain was pouring down, spluttering in our faces. Then we saw it, the dark cloud in the sky. Something was coming, and it wasn't good. We started to panic, rapidly throwing and shoving foods and beach toys into various beach bags. Rain plummeted down as we worked, making it hard to see. The extreme wind was making it hard to stay standing. I remember the time Mum and I got stuck in a cafe during a storm. On our way to pick up "Sophie," I said aloud, but with the air noisily whistling through our ears, I could hardly hear myself. I decided to go find her by myself. Running down the beach, I stumbled. As I got up, I realised that it was a branch from a tree that had fallen down. The one with the tire swing that Sophie and I played on. The storm must have blown it down, I thought. I screamed out "Sophie" as loud as I could. Then, as if on cue, a small, scared scream came from a tree about 3 metres down the beach. I sprinted to the noise and saw Sophie cowering behind the tree, immovable. She looked up and saw me. Without a word, I grabbed her hand and we ran. "Stop!" yelled Sophie as she bent over to pick up something. We both heard Dad's numerous shouts. Sophie held my hand and we continued in the direction of Dad's worried screams. His eyes lit up as we approached him. Then he moved us into a small wooden shed. As soon as the shed door slammed shut, he cupped us in a huge bear hug. "I am so happy you two are okay," whispered Dad. "You are okay, aren't you?" he continued. He looked us up and down. We were both standing in our soaking wet summer dresses, and I could feel the rainwater running down my back. "We're fine, Dad. Nothing's wrong." "I'm cold, Daddy," butted in Sophie, speaking for the first time. "Okay, Princess, I'll get you a blanket," he said, as he began pulling random items out of the beach bags. Inside the small shed, it was safe. We were all hungry after not eating since breakfast, so we decided it was as good as any place to eat. As I ate a roll, I listened to the storm, pattering of rain against the shed, the loud hissing wind sweeping up the grains of sand, the crash of waves on the shore, and occasionally a crack of a falling tree that sounded like a pencil breaking in two. As the storm continued, it got late. "I'm tired," I yawned as I lay on the ground underneath a blanket. It was warm and felt like a polar bear was wrapping me in its arms. "Me too," replied Dad. Sophie was already fast asleep, letting out a soft snore once in a while. Dad gave me a kiss on my forehead. "Go to sleep, my brave hero." And then I was gone. I woke the next morning with the sun shining down upon me, shaking Dad and Sophie awake. They both let out a yawn and then sat up. "Good morning, girlie," said Dad, blinking because of the brightness. Then he realised the sun. Standing up, we all ventured out into the day. We walked down the beach feeling the fresh air on our skin and the sand slipping between our toes. I noticed that Sophie had something in her hand. "What's that, Sophie?" I questioned. "My shell, the one I saved from the storm last night," she replied, handing it to me.